And give praises to the Most High for his wisdom, knowledge, understanding. And we glorify him for all things, because the Most High is a sustainer of wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. And he gives that wisdom and knowledge. And to say that this knowledge is our own and we get puffed up. And I and my knowledge. This is the Most High's knowledge that he gives and he imparts to each and every one of us. All right? And it's up to us to partake of the Most High's wisdom and knowledge. All right? So we're going to start the class basically going back over what we do with the 400 years. Explaining 400 years, because that 400 years and that 430-year prophecies are very important prophecies and events in the scriptures. The 430 years is one event and one prophecy. The 400 years is another event and another prophecy by itself. All right? But we have to get the understanding or the overstanding of the 430 years. In the Bible, which we use today, most Bible is called the Masoretic text. All right? This is called the Masoretic text in most of the books that we use today. And when they translate it, we want to spell on it. Hold on.
Yeah, how you spell it?
Okay, I'll get it to you later on.
Okay.
All right? You could look it up on your phone while we're talking. You could Google it and look it up, Masoretic too.
What's the difference between King James?
I'm going to explain it. Just hold on. This is the main Bible that we use there, the Masoretic text. All right? And then we also have the Samaritan text. All right? And we have the Septuagint. Okay, the Masoretic text was translated by what you call scholars during a certain period in history where it was translated into the English during around the 9th century AD, around that period, in the AD period, where they translated the scripts into English. Now, certain things were omitted, was not fully put in, that was in the other ancient scripts, known as the Septuagint, all right, or the Samaritan. They have a better and more understanding of the text. For instance, when we go to Exodus, the 12th chapter, all right, let's go to that real quick. Exodus, the 12th chapter. Because a lot of people, when they read this verse, they automatically assume that the children of Israel spent 430 years in Egypt, which is not so. All right? A lot of people say, brother, you're going on, brother. The scripture said 430 years. But we have to get the proper understanding of the scripture. All right? So, Karaza, Rakar, read that for me. Exodus 12 and 40.
Reading out the book of Exodus, the 12th chapter, in the 40th verse. Now the sojourning of the children of Israel who dwelt in Egypt was 430 years.
So some people read and say, see, brother, that's what the scripture says, brother. They said we dwelt in Egypt for 430 years. But in this translation, called the Masoretic text, they omitted the full, complete translation that was written in the Septuagint and also in the Samaritan, and also what was written in the Josephus. All right? So now, this prophecy here will make you think, oh, 430 years in Egypt. But then when you read Exodus 15 and 13, you say, well, wait a minute. It says, the children of Israel shall be afflicted 400 years. But they're both two different events, historical events and prophecies. All right? So this 430 years is a combination of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and from the point when Jacob went down into Egypt to the Exodus. That's a combination of that 430 years. It's not all one whole 430 years we were in Egypt as slaves. 215 years was in the land of Canaan, beginning with Abraham to Jacob, And the other 215 years is with Jacob, from the point that Jacob went down to Egypt with his sons and his family. From that point until the Exodus is another 215 years. It's a combination of years put together. It wasn't just one 430 years in Egypt, because we did not spend not even 400 years as slaves in Egypt. Right? The slavery in Egypt was not even 400 years, not even 200 years. It was way less than that. All right? And we're going to show and get into those things. But I want to show too, we go to the Josephus. All right? Go to Josephus real quick, and we'll get to the part, I think it's in chapter 2, where Josephus speaks about that. All right? Because it's written in paper.
So, Exodus 15, verse 13.
We're going to get to that. We're going to get to that too. We'll get to that in 1 second. Okay, it's in Josephus in book 2, chapter 15. Book number 2, chapter 15. You got it? Or you can read it off on this here too. All right. Start here from the top, yeah.
Okay. In the book of Josephus, Antiquity of the Jews, states in book 2, chapter 15, paragraph 2. They left Egypt in the month of Exodus.
Exanticus, which is in the spring, in the April. All right, go ahead.
On the 15th day of the lunar month, 430 years after our forefather Abraham came into Canaan.
See, now he's starting the time period from the time Abraham came into the land of Canaan. So the count is starting with Abraham from that point. All right, continue.
But 215 years only after Jacob removed into Egypt.
Right, so that's 215 years from Abraham to Jacob, when Jacob went down now to Egypt. That's going to be 215 years. All right, go ahead.
William Winston, who translated the works of Flavius Josephus.
So this scholar or historian that translated the book of Josephus, go ahead.
Into English, included a footnote at the bottom of the page in regard to what Josephus wrote concerning the Israelites' 215-year stay in Egypt.
So Josephus even documented that it was 215 years from Abraham to Jacob, and from Jacob going to Egypt was another 215 years. Go ahead.
Why our Masoretic copy so groundlessly abridges this account.
So he said, why does our Masoretic text so groundlessly abridges this text? All right? Why did it not include this other part of that insight or information that's needed? All right? Read it again from that part.
Why our Masoretic copy so groundlessly abridges this account in Exodus 12 and 40 to ascribe 430 years to the sole peregrinage nation of the Israelites in Egypt.
So he's saying, why did they just make it seem as if the 430 years was just only in Egypt, the 430 years, which was not. So he was wondering why. Why did the Masoretic text leave out that information and put it as if it was just 430 years in Egypt? So he was questioning that. All right, go ahead.
When it is even clear by that Masoretic chronology elsewhere, as well as from the express text itself in the Samaritan.
See, in the Samaritan text, which was written by Israelites, go ahead.
Septuagint.
In the Septuagint, which was written by Israelite, that was written in Greek for the Greek-speaking Israelites that translated. They did that down in Egypt, all right? And it was dispersed to the other Israelites that was living all throughout the different areas that spoke the Greek language. Because Greek was the common known language at that particular time. Continue.
And Josephus,
And the Josephus, so these are three witnesses that documented and recorded that historical event. All right? The Samaritan text, the Septuagint, and the Josephus. Go ahead.
that they sojourned in Egypt but half that time.
So the sojourn in Egypt was only half that time, half of that 430 years. All right? So from the time that Jacob went into Egypt with his sons, that's the other half of the 215 years. And out of that 215 years, it was not even over 100 years of slavery. And we're going to show that and prove that. All right? Continue reading on.
And that by consequence, the other half of their peregrination was in the land of Canaan.
Right. So the other half was in the land of Canaan, and the other half was down in Egypt, which is a combination of that 215 years give you the 430 years. So the count began with Abraham in the land of Canaan, not solely down in Egypt 430 years. There's more to it?
No, that's
All right. Okay. Now let's go to Genesis the 15th chapter, because Genesis the 15th chapter is another historical and prophetic event. It's two different events, all right? Because Genesis the 15th chapter was referring to us coming over here to the Americas. It wasn't referring to this the land of Egypt over in North Africa. All right? So let's read Genesis the 15th chapter.
I'm reading out the book of Genesis, the 15th chapter, and the 13th verse. And he said unto Abram, know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years.
Right. So we serve and they afflict us for 400 years. And that was documented when we was brought to this part of the world. Yes, there was a slavery, but it wasn't documented like the way this one was done. At this time, the United States became a nation. The other places was just lands that the Spanish and the Portuguese dumped the slaves off to. But when they came to America, it was a nation ran by the British. So it was documented on that day, 1619. It's still today documented all throughout the history, throughout Congress. That even Trump made a law, it's called the H.R. something, documenting the 400 years of slavery here in America. Right? So that scripture that the Most High was showing Abraham in Genesis, because go back up to the start from the 12th verse.
Reading out the book of Genesis, the 15th chapter, and we're going to begin at the 12th verse. And when the sun was going down, a deep sleep fell upon Abram.
So the Most High put Abraham into a trance, all right, a deep sleep. The Most High had to show him this vision. All right, go ahead.
And lo, and horror of a great darkness fell upon him.
That horror of great darkness that he saw was the slavery, the transatlantic slavery, of us going to slavery over in this part of the world. It was a horror of great darkness. All right, continue.
And he said unto Abraham, know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years.
And that's the time that we're in now. And we reached that 400-year mark. And now the Most High is bringing forth his judgment on this country. All right? We reached that 400 mark. It's up. All right? And the Most High said, and that nation, he's going to judge. And that's what the Most High is doing now. He's judging this country. All right? Continue reading on.
And also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge. And afterwards shall they come out with great substance.
And we're going to come out with great substance when we leave here. All right? Wealth. We're not leaving here broke. We're leaving here with substance. When you look up substance, it means a lot of things. Either land, wealth, gold. We're leaving with something here. We're not leaving here empty-handed. Not for all the years we put in here slavery and catching hell. Just like Egypt. When we left Egypt wealthy and strong. That's the reason why the Egyptians enslaved us in Egypt too. because they got envious and jealous and saw the wealth that we had in Egypt. Okay? And now we're going to go into that, because while we was in Egypt, when we went down to Egypt with Jacob, there wasn't no slavery. So the question I have to ask, when did the slavery begin in Egypt? At what point? And at who did the slavery begin with?
It was a new Pharaoh.
Right? It was a new Pharaoh.
Yeah.
All right? Who knows the name of that new Pharaoh?
I can't pronounce it.
All right? You got to write these names down, all right? All right? That Pharaoh was Amenhotep. All right? I'll spell it for you. Or how did he spell, so we have the name spelled properly too.
You want me to spell it for him?
Yeah, go ahead, spell it from here.
A-M-E-N H-O-T-E-P. Amenhotep. The first.
All right? Yeah, Amenhotep the first. All right? So y'all got it? A-M-E-N, like Amen, and Hotep. H-O-T-E-P. All right?
Pharaoh.
The Pharaoh was Amenhotep. All right? Also, he was known also too as Amuz. Because Amuz kicked out the Hyksos out of Egypt. All right? So, when Jacob and his sons went down to Egypt, there wasn't no slavery. Why was there not no slavery in Egypt at this particular time?
Was it the famine?
Yeah, it was a famine, but who was in charge? Who was running things in Egypt at this particular time? Joseph. Joseph was governor over Egypt, and he was ruling Egypt. Right? And this was the period when the Hyksos was there too. And Jacob got in good with the Hyksos. All right? So they made him governor over Egypt. Now the question, how long did Joseph rule in Egypt?
Say he was 33.
We go to the scriptures. All right. So let's give you let's go to Genesis 37 first. Genesis 37. Because Joseph went into Egypt at a young age, as a young man. All right, let's go to Genesis 37. Genesis 37, 1 and 2.
Read out the book of Genesis, 37th chapter, verses 1 and 2. And Jacob dwelt in the land wherein his father was a stranger, in the land of Canaan.
Which one you read? Genesis 37?
Genesis 37, verse 1.
Okay, right. All right. So read that verse again.
And Jacob dwelt in the land wherein his father was a stranger, in the land of Canaan.
So Jacob was still in the land of Canaan. All right. He didn't go into Egypt yet. All right. Continue.
These are the generations of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brethren. And the lad was with the sons of Bilhah, and with the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives, and Joseph brought unto his father their evil report.
All right. So at 17, so at the age of 17, he was sold into Egypt. And who sold him into Egypt? Who were the culprits involved in selling him into Egypt? Who was he sold to? And who sold him into Egypt?
Ishmael.
Right. His brothers sold him to the Ishmaelites, the Midianites. Right? That was their thing. They was big into that. Right? So when they sold him into Egypt, all right, as time progressed, we knew what happened. He was accused by the Pharaoh's wife that he tried to have sex with her and stuff like that. She made up false accusations. claimed that he tried to rape her, and he left his red coat in the room. And when her husband came, she tried to persuade her husband, look what your slave did. He tried to come in and rape me. And then the Pharaoh, not even questioning and investigating the situation, he locked Joseph up in jail. Now, so he went through all those trials and everything. Then what happened that got him released from prison?
The dream.
Right, his dream. He was able to interpret the dream to Pharaoh of what was going to happen to Egypt. See, this was a gift the Most High gave him. He could interpret dreams. Right? He was a visionist. All right? So when he did that, after that he was excelled to a certain level in Egypt. And this was the Most High's doing to prepare and have a place for us in Egypt. All right? So now from there, go to Genesis 41.
Book of Genesis, the 41st chapter.
All right? And we're going to begin here from the 38th verse.
Read at the 38th verse. Genesis 41st chapter, 38th verse. And Pharaoh said unto his servants, can we find such a one as this is a man in whom the spirit of Yahweh is?
Right, so when he interpreted his dream and he explained the dream to him and showed him what he has to do to prepare for all the famine and everything, the Pharaoh said, man, the spirit of the Most High have to be in you in order for you to see and understand these things. When Pharaoh saw it, he knew it was true. He was like, wow, this thing's going to come to pass indeed. Because none of his wise men couldn't interpret the dream. But when Joseph interpreted that dream and explained to him, he was like, man, spirit of the Most High is in you, man. You're going to be my man. All right? And Joseph became elevated at that point. Now we're going to see at what age he began to become a ruler or governor in Egypt. Continue reading on.
And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, for as much as Yahweh has showed thee all this, there is none so discreet and wise as thou art. Thou shalt be over my house, and according unto thy word shall all my people be ruled. Only in the throne will I be greater than thee.
So he said, in the throne, I'm going to be greater than you, but you the man under me. You next in line to rule Egypt. Now, what part of Egypt was Joseph ruling? It's very important to understand this here too.
Lower.
Right. Okay, so remember, Joseph was ruling, all this is Egypt here. It's the Nile River, right? The Nile River flows downward, what they call down into Upper Egypt. What we call Southern Egypt. That's where the Nile River begins. All right? It flows down here, goes down all along into Ethiopia, Uganda, and all those areas. The longest river in the world. All right? So this part of Egypt is called the upper part of Egypt. All right? Up top, which we call the north, it's called Lower Egypt. All right? So the Nile River empties out into the Mediterranean Sea. Right up here. It runs out into the Mediterranean Sea. But it begins from what they call the upper part of Egypt. All right? Now, when Joseph was in Egypt, and the Hyksos, we were dwelling in this part of the land called Goshen. Where the Hyksos was dwelling was called Avaris. All of this was in what you call the lower part of Egypt, in the Nile Delta region. That's where we were dwelling, in that area. Now, Egypt had three parts of the land that they had. One part was called Middle Egypt and the Upper Egypt. The Pharaoh that came in, that took back over Egypt when Joseph died, came from Upper Egypt and took back over all of Egypt, the middle and the lower kingdom. So that's why when he came back into power, they said there was a new king that came that knew not Joseph. Did he knew Joseph?
No.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
The Egyptians kept a meticulous records of history, and everything was written on the walls, on the Medineto. Everything was recorded on the walls in Egypt. They knew, but he didn't give a damn about Joseph. He said, I'm the new sheriff in town. I don't give a damn what Joseph did for you. I'm taking back over Egypt, and you Hebrews going in slavery. I don't care about you. You living good in Egypt. The Egyptians have the same mindset like the Europeans today. Ain't no different. The same mindset. So when he came back and took back over, because the Hyksos was ruling for those 200 years. And what they feared more, when we started to populate and grew rich in Egypt, the Hyksos was their enemies that took over Egypt for 200 years. Also, what they feared too was the Ethiopians, because they were at war with the Ethiopians too. That's why they could not take back over the lower part of Egypt, because they were contending and fighting with the Ethiopians. And then the Hyksos kept them at bay. You understand? So when the Hyksos ruled that area, they couldn't come back up into the lower parts of Egypt. They had to stay in the upper part of Egypt. So when they got the Hyksos out eventually, and they said, you Hebrews here too? Don't worry, we're going to enslave you. So he came back and took over the lower part of Egypt. Always remember that. When everybody asks you where in Egypt we dwelt, it's called the Nile Delta area, known as Goshen. It's called Lower Egypt. That's where we dealt. That's where we lived. The best part of the land. The most fertile part of the land. Because this part of the land was also our land that the Most High gave us. And how do we know that? When you go back to Genesis, right? Let's go back to Genesis, the 15th chapter. Because the Most High told Abraham that he was going to give him that land. Yes.
You never said how long he ruled.
Well, we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that. Well, I didn't forget you. We're coming to that. Go back to Genesis 15 again. All right, when you go back here to Genesis 15. So remember, when Joseph dwelt in that area, Joseph knew exactly, according to prophecies, that we was going to dwell in this land of the land called Goshen. Because the Most High told Abraham, I'm going to give this land to your seed. All right? Go ahead, Genesis 15.
Genesis the 15th chapter.
And start here from the 18th verse.
Verse 18. In the same day, the Lord Yahweh made a covenant with Abram, saying, unto thy seed have I given this land, from the river of Egypt.
Where's the river of Egypt? See? From the river of Egypt, this way empties right into the Mediterranean Sea. From the river of Egypt, go ahead.
Unto the great river.
Unto the great river, which is up here. All right? Which is the Euphrates. It's further up north. All right? So this was the beginning era. This area here called the Nile Delta region. Or Goshen. Go ahead.
Unto the great river, the river Euphrates. The Canaanites and the Kizanites and the Canaanites and the Hittites and the Perizzites and the Rephaims and the Amorites and the Canaanites and the Gergesites and the Jebusites.
And these were all dwelling in the land of Canaan, and also up in the area where the Euphrates was dwelling. Euphrates area is. So this was also our land that the Most High gave us. From the river of Egypt, which is the Nile, from this beginning, from the mouth of it, not the mouth, but the ending part of it. This was our land up into Israel, going upwards. So that's why Joseph was ruling in this area, and we had this part of the land called Goshen, the best part of Egypt, the most fertile land in Egypt. All right. Now let's go back to Genesis 47. All right.
Genesis 47.
Okay. We left off. No, we didn't finish Genesis 41. I'm sorry. Genesis 41. So let's go back to Genesis 41. And we left off at what verse there? Read the 39th verse again.
39th verse again.
Yeah.
And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, for as much as Yahweh have showed thee all this, there is none so discreet and wise as thou art. Thou shalt be over my house, and according to thy word shall all my people be ruled. Only in the throne will I be greater than thou.
Right. So the Pharaoh was greater than Joseph, but nobody else exceeded Joseph when he came to that position. All right. Continue.
And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, see, I have set thee over all the land of Egypt.
Right. All the land. It's not talking about all over in Egypt. The lower parts of Egypt. That's where they was ruling. Okay. Go ahead.
And Pharaoh took off his ring from his hand and put it upon Joseph's hand, and arrayed him in vestures of fine linen, and put a gold chain about his neck. And he made him to ride in the second chariot which he had. And they cried before him, bow thy knee. And he made him ruler over all the land of Egypt.
So he made him a ruler. Now we're going to find out what age he became that ruler. All right, continue.
And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without thee shall no man lift up his hand or foot in all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zaphnath-Paneah, and he gave him to wife Asenath, the daughter of Potipharah, the priest of On. And Joseph went out over all the land of Egypt. And Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh.
See, he was 30 years old when he became ruler of Egypt, governor, 30 years old. All right? Finish reading that.
And Joseph went from the presence of Pharaoh and went throughout all the land of Egypt.
Continue.
And in the 7 plenteous years, the earth brought forth by handfuls. And he gathered up all the food of 7 years, which were in the land of Egypt, and laid them up food in the cities.
Okay, that's it there. Now go over here now. Go over to the 45th, Genesis 45. I'm going to show you something here. All right? Genesis 45. And read this, read the 10th verse.
Genesis 45 and 10. And thou shalt dwell in the land of Goshen.
See, and thou shalt dwell in where?
In the land of Goshen.
In the land of Goshen, in the Nile Delta Valley area. All right? Which is Lower Egypt. Go ahead.
And thou shalt be near unto me, thou and thy children, and thy children's children, and thy flocks, and thy herds, and all that thou hast.
Now, okay, so we see that Joseph began to rule at 30 years. Now, at this first reign of his rulership, his father did not come into Egypt yet. All right? They came into Egypt about around the second part of his reign in Egypt. That's when they came into Egypt. All right? Now we're going to find out he was 30 years old when he began to rule, right? Now let's find out how long he ruled for. All right? Let's go to Genesis 50. Genesis the 50th chapter. Genesis 50, and let's start from the 22nd verse.
Genesis chapter 50 and verse 20. Verse 20, right?
22, yeah.
Verse 22. And Joseph dwelt in Egypt, he and his father's house, and Joseph lived 110 years.
So how long did Joseph live for?
110.
Okay. So how long did he rule for?
80 years.
80 years, from the age of 30. Right? So that's 80 years that he ruled for. So now the question is, when he ruled for those 80 years, was there any slavery?
No.
No. There wasn't no slavery. So when did the slavery begin?
After he died.
After he died. During what time and who? When Moses was born. Around the time that Moses was born. So now, if he ruled for 80 years, and even after he died, there still wasn't no slavery, because the slavery came afterwards. It took a period of time before the slavery came in. So if you rule for 80 years, you're already knocking off what? If you take away 400 from 80 years, how many years you have left?
320.
320 years. So you already start to see that it's not adding up right there already. Right? Now 80 years, he ruled 80 years, right? Now during that 80 years that he ruled, after he died, there was a gap of time between that, between when he died and when Moses was born. And how do we figure that out? How do we figure out what's the space and the gap of time? If Jacob came to Egypt at 215 years. That made the other half the 215 years. And Joseph ruled for 80 years. If you subtract 215 years from 80, how many years do you have left?
135.
135. 135 years. That's left out of that 215 years. Now, when was Moses born? After the slavery or during the slavery?
During this,
During the slavery. During the slavery. Moses was born during the slavery. Let's go to the book of Acts. I'm going to show you something. It's easy. After when you meditate upon it, you figure it out, you're going to see like, wait, wow. And I'm going to show you the chronology. Because before we go to that, let's go to Genesis 46. I want to show you something real here. I'm going to pick your brains real quick to show you all here. When Jacob went into Egypt, let me ask this first. What tribe did Moses come from? Levi. Now, who was Moses' father? Amram. Amram. A-M-R-A-M. And who was his grandfather? Let's go to Genesis 46. I'm going to show you something. Genesis 46, right? Now, Genesis 46. And start from the 6th verse.
Genesis the 46th chapter, 6th verse. And they took their cattle and their goods, which they had gotten in the land of Canaan, and came into Egypt.
Okay, this begin now the 215 years, the other half of the 215 years, when Jacob is going down to Egypt now with his sons. Now listen good at this. Go ahead, continue.
Jacob and all his seed with him, his sons and his sons' sons with him, his daughters and his sons' daughters, and all his seed brought he with him into Egypt. And these are the names of the children of Israel, which came into Egypt. Jacob and his sons. Reuben, Jacob's firstborn.
Now jump down here. I want to show you something. Jump down to the 11th verse now.
Verse 11. And the sons of Levi, Gershon.
Now these are the sons of Levi. Levi had 3 sons. Gershom, go ahead. Kohath,
and Merari.
and Merari. Now, out of this family, which one did Moses come from?
Mahali.
No, Moses came from Kohath. Now, these sons was born where? Where was these 3 sons born? Was they born in Egypt or in Canaan?
Egypt.
No, they were born in Canaan. These 3 sons that Levi had were born in Canaan. Kohath, Gershon, and Merari was born in the land of Canaan. So they already, when they came into Egypt, now let's find out. Moses came from the family of Kohath. Remember, these sons were already born already. They didn't grow up in Egypt. They were already born in the land of Canaan. Now let's go over here to Exodus, the 6th chapter. I want to show you something. Exodus, the 6th chapter.
Exodus 6th chapter. Ben, can I give them a date?
Yes, yes.
So write this date down. We entered into Egypt in the year 1706. Write that date down. 1706.
BC.
BC. Okay, that's when we went into Egypt. Okay, it's Exodus 6th chapter?
Yes, Exodus 6. And start here, start from the 16th verse.
Exodus 6th chapter, the 16th verse. And these are the names of the sons of Levi according to their generations. Gershon and Kohath and Merari. And the years of the life of Levi were 137 years.
So Levi lived to be 137 years. All right? Because Levi was born in the land of Canaan. All right? Go ahead.
And the sons of Gershon, Libni and Shimei according to their families. And the sons of Kohath.
Now listen now. The sons of Kohath. All right? Kohath was also born in the land of Canaan. Now Kohath had this son in Egypt. All right, read again.
And the sons of Kohath, Amram, and Izhar, and Hebron, and Uziel, and the years of the life of Kohath were 133 years.
Now, these sons here, Amram, Izhar, Hebron, and Uziel, they were born in Egypt. Now, the family line that Moses came from is from this one here called Amram. Now, Amram begins the generation of them being born in Egypt. But let's find out. When was Moses born? Let's continue reading on.
Verse 19, and the sons of Merari, Mahali, Mushi, these are the families of Levi according to their generations. And Amram took him Jochebed, his father's sister, to wife, and she bare him Aaron, Moses, in the years of the life of Amram, 137 years.
Right. So now, where does the generation begin from? It started from who? Amram. How many generations is that? From Amram to Moses is how many generations?
2 generations.
That's only 2 generations. You see that? 2 generations. Because the other sons were already born in the land of Canaan. So when Amram was born in Egypt, he had Moses right after. And 2 generations is not 400 years. It's impossible. So when Amram was born and he had children, he had Moses and Aaron. Now we're going to find out how old. Yes.
I was checking why the scripture put it like that, say 400.
Because I'm going to show you. Because the Most High put certain things for us to search out the scriptures. Like I said before, in the Masoretic text, they groundlessly abridge the full understanding of it. So a lot of people when they read it, they think, oh, it's 400 years of slavery in Egypt. But no, it wasn't. You understand? So you have to read between the scriptures and start doing the math. If Joseph ruled for 80 years, that knocks out 300 some years of slavery. All right? Because remember, Joseph had 80 years already. All right? Now let's go back to Exodus, the 1st chapter. I'm going to show you something. Before we go to Exodus, let's go to Acts. Acts, the 7th chapter.
The New Testament.
Acts, the 7th chapter.
The New Testament and Old Testament go together. All right. Okay, Acts, the 7th chapter.
Acts, start here from,
We'll start when he walked in.
start from,
Moses born, verse 20.
start from the 15th verse, Acts 7:15.
Acts 7:15. So Jacob went down into Egypt and died. He and our forefathers, and were carried away over into Shechem and laid in the sepulchre that Abraham bought for a sum of money of the sons of Emor, the father of Shechem. But when the time of the promise drew near, which Yahweh had sworn to Abraham, the people grew in multitude in Egypt.
Right, so we grew and we multiplied in Egypt. All right, and this was during the time of Joseph. All right, go ahead.
Till another king which knew not Joseph.
Right, so there's another king that came up now that knew not Joseph. This is Amenhotep the first. All right, go ahead.
The same dealt subtly with our kindred, and evil entreated our fathers, so that they cast out their young children to the end they might not live. In which time Moses was born.
See, in which time Moses was born. When was Moses born? During the time of the slavery. Most of the time, when there's hard oppression or slavery, who is born?
Prophets.
Right, a deliverer or a savior. And Moses was born during that period of the time of the slavery. And even the Egyptians knew that. They recorded that event. That Moses was going to be a deliverer of the children of Israel. And they said, well, we got to watch this guy here. Because they had what they call the elites, wise men and magician, that foresaw that Moses was going to be that deliverer. All right? So read that 20th verse again.
In which time Moses was born and was exceedingly fair and nourished up in his father's house 3 months. And when he was cast out, Pharaoh's daughter took him up and nourished him for her own son. And Moses was learning all the wisdom of the Egyptians.
So what was the wisdom of the Egyptians that he was learning?
Mathematics.
And what else?
Warfare.
Warfare, and what else? And science. All right? Math, geometry, science, astronomy, and warfare. Yes.
What would be their science in their days?
The science was what they call astronomy, and knowing about how to bury the bodies, mummify, surgery. They did all that stuff to the Egyptians. All right, they were deep into that stuff. Embalming. They knew the science about they knew the dimension and the heights, how to build a pyramid to certain degrees. All right, so they knew science and geometry and stuff like that. All right, but they also learned from other people that was in Egypt too.
Correct.
All right, it's just like America. America had foreigners come to America and brought certain ideas and inventions to America. The same with Egypt too. All right, they got a lot of ideas and invention from the Shemitic people too. All right, because Egypt itself, even though it was a kingdom, it didn't have everything on its own. Because for one example, where did they get their gold from? Where did Egypt gold come from?
Gold Coast.
Ethiopia.
From Ethiopia. They enslaved the Ethiopians and took their gold. And remember, Moses was a general in their army fighting against the Ethiopians. So people can tell you, oh, Africa was such a harmonious, united kingdom. No, it wasn't. All right? Ethiopia and Egypt fought constantly for rivalry to keep that power. All right? And when Moses was general in their army, he fought against the Ethiopians. All right? And he defeated the Ethiopians. All right? I'm going to show you that too. Also too, when we're going to Josephus, because when Moses was in the military, in order for him to go over into Ethiopia, he had to come back and deal with the serpents that they had all throughout Egypt and Ethiopia. So whenever the soldiers would go out to fight against the Ethiopians, the serpents would come out from the bushes wherever they are and attack and bite and kill the soldiers. So Moses came up with an idea of using the ibis. Anybody heard about ibis? The ibis bird? You ever see in Egypt they got the bird on the walls of Egypt that they glorify and worship?
Yes. Yes.
You with a long beak? That's what Moses used and put in a basket to defeat and kill off all the serpents. So when he went down to Ethiopia and he fought it, he conquered Ethiopia. And then Ethiopia brought back gifts and was subject to Egypt.
Can I say this?
Yeah.
So the Ethiopians, they would use the snakes as military tactics. Just like Esau might put a landmine. So when you walk a certain in the area, it'll blow up.
Yeah, the snakes will attack you because these snakes are poisonous snakes. So what snakes is famous down in Egypt and those here? What type of snakes?
Cobra.
Cobras and what else? The black mamba. You understand? So Moses used the ibis. That was a killer of those serpents, man. And he put them in baskets and he used it as a tactic to fight off the serpents that was in that area. And when he went down to Ethiopia, he put a beating in there behind, man. And when he came back, the king of Egypt was like, yeah, man, you the man, man. All right? And Ethiopia came in subjection, bearing golds and stuff to them. That's why the word Nubian is not really a name for them. That's a name that the Egyptian called them. Nubian, because when they conquered them, they took the gold from them and called them a gold piece. A piece for gold. All right? Because the Egyptian word for gold is Nubu. So what the Egyptians would do, they'll even brand the Ethiopians, enslave them, and give them Egyptian names. So when the Ethiopians had a chance, they will take back and fight back and take back the throne of Egypt. And you had two pharaohs that did that. It was called Shishak, that's in the Bible too, and Pianki. All right? So it was constant rivalry. There wasn't no peace and love with them. Egypt fought for supremacy to keep their rulership, man. That's why when the Hyksos went down there, the Hyksos put a whipping in there behind. And that was embarrassing to Egypt. That's why when the new Pharaoh came, he said, I don't give a damn about Joseph. I don't care who he was and what he did. I'm the new sheriff in town. All right? So continue reading on.
Okay, we're going to read at the verse 20 again. So verse 22, and when Moses learned in all the wisdom of the Egyptians and was mighty in words and in deeds.
Right, so he was eloquent and fluent in the Egyptian, but he was not in the Hebrew. Because he grew up in the Egyptian culture and way of life. Continue.
And when he was full 40 years old, it came to his heart to visit his brethren, the children of Israel.
So at this time, he was in the Egyptian army too. And this is when he made his exodus out of the land. This is when he left Egypt. Because what he did, he saw the Israelites fighting amongst themselves, and they said, who made you a judge over us? Are you going to kill me like you killed the Egyptian? So when Moses heard mercy, said, wow, this thing is known. If you know this, then the Egyptians know this. So Moses said, I got a hightail out of Egypt, man. And now, and where did Moses go?
Midian.
Right. Okay, so where is Midian?
Arabia.
Right. So Moses went over here to Midian, all right, which is Arabia. How did Moses know these terrain?
He
was a general.
He was a general, so he knew what? The terrain of the land. He knew geography, science, math, because he was learned in all the wisdom of the Egyptians. So to be a general, you have to know terrain. Understand? You have to know tactics, strategy, the land terrain, to maneuver your military. All right? You want to say Corazza?
So when you read where it says that Moses was learning all the wisdom of the Egyptians and was mighty in words and deeds, you can see that the Most High had the spirit on him. Also the spirit of the law was in him too. All right? He was mighty in words and deeds. So he did good things.
Right.
Then he seen his brethren. You know, that scripture say he went to see his brethren, the children of Israel. Okay?
And then, what made him so great? Because he already had that occupation or talent that he learned in Egypt. So only thing the Most High did is added and brought the spiritual part to it. Understand? So then when the Most High took him, when he left and went there, the Most High was grooming him for another job. And when he left Egypt and he went to Midian, what was he doing in Midian? What was he in Midian?
He married in Midian.
He became a shepherd. And what is a shepherd? What's the job of a shepherd?
Look after sheep.
To look over the flocks. So what was the symbolic meaning of that?
A leader.
A leader. He was going to be a leader over the flock of Israel. So the Most High was giving him a spiritual grooming while he was in the land of Midian. See how the Most High used your physical occupation, then he gives you into the spiritual occupation of what he wants you to do. Because when he fled, he went to that area and he was a shepherd taking care of sheep. So what does the Most High call Israel?
Sheep.
Sheeps. Most High said we're like a shepherd without a what? We're like a sheep without a what? Without a shepherd. So Moses was that shepherd of that flock. The Most High was grooming him in Midian. So when he came back into Egypt, he was going to lead the Most High flock out of Egypt. All right?
Could we tell them that when by the time Moses was born, there was a new Pharaoh too?
There was a new Pharaoh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can write this down. The first Pharaoh that we wrote down was, we said Amenhotep, right? The first. That was the Pharaoh that we came in.
Right. That's the Pharaoh that knew not Joseph.
And
Amenhotep the first.
So like Ben said, some years went by before slavery actually began. So now there was a new Pharaoh came in when Moses was born. And his name was Thutmose. Thutmose the first.
Right. That's where Moses got his name from. From him.
The first.
Yeah. Thutmose the first. All right. That was a Pharaoh. All right. Now from there let's go back to Exodus, the first chapter. So we read that now when the slavery took place, Moses was born. So now we already got 80 years of Joseph ruling. All right? Now we're going to find out how old was Moses when he left Egypt. And how long that slavery lasted. All right, let's go back to Exodus, the first chapter. Exodus 1, and let's start from the 6th verse.
Exodus chapter 1, verse 6. And Joseph died, and all his brethren, and all that generation.
So Joseph died. Still, it wasn't no slavery yet. All right, go ahead.
And the children of Israel were fruitful, and increased abundantly, and multiplied, and waxed exceedingly mighty, and the land was filled with them.
Right, the land was filled with us. All right? Just like we are here in America today. Right? The same tactics that they use here against us, the Egyptians did the same thing. To do what? Genocide and destroy and control the population. Birth control. Right? Control the population. All right? Go ahead.
Now there rose up a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph.
And who's that new king? What's his name?
Amenhotep. All right, write that down.
Right. He was also called Amustu, but Amenhotep was his name. All right, remember that.
He's the first, right?
Amenhotep the first, yes. All right. So you know how to spell his name, right? Amenhotep. Amenhotep the first. All right. Go ahead.
And he said unto his people, behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we.
Right, because we began to outnumber them. But now, we were not outnumbering all of Egypt, only the part of Lower Egypt. All right? Because that's where we were situated. Remember that Pharaoh, he came from Upper Egypt up into Lower Egypt. He was not ruling in Lower Egypt prior to that. He was down in Upper Egypt, trying to hold on to this base here to contend with who? To contend with the Ethiopians. Because the Hyksos had them at bay. The Hyksos was ruling up in this area, the same land that we were in. Because what they feared the most is that we would join up with the Ethiopian and the Hyksos to suppress the Egyptians. That's why he made that decree. He said, listen, man, these Israelites are growing too much in the land. They're going to join our enemies, man. All right, let's continue reading on.
Verse 10, come on, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply, and it come to pass that when there falleth out any war.
See, they were warring before that, prior to that. There wasn't no peace and harmony in Egypt and those areas. They were warring like hell for supremacy to keep Egypt as a kingdom. And Ethiopia and the Sudan, all right, it was called Nubia. That's what they call it. But mainly the Ethiopians were the one that was warring against them. All right, continue.
Come on, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply, and it come to pass that when there falleth out any war, they join also unto our enemies and fight against us, and so get them out of the land.
That's what they feared the most. Damn, these Israelites are going to join up again with the Hyksos and Ethiopians and fight against us. And they didn't want that. Yes.
It's so mirror with what America deals with us today.
The same way. The same thing. Everything that the Egyptians did, America did. That's why the Most High called this spiritual Egypt. Most High said, I'm going to bring you into Egypt again with ships. Everything that America has done and is doing, Egypt did the same thing. Nothing different. Their whole idea was to throw us into the Nile, the first kill all the male child, throw the male child into the river. Why? So the crocodiles could eat us. Then what did they do over here? Use as alligator baits. The same thing.
Abortion, the firstborn.
Kill everything. You understand? So it's the same mentality. All right? Continue.
Can I say this?
Yes.
Now you got to look at the military strategy and the politics what Egypt was dealing with. It says, so get them up out of the land. They had wanted to get us out of the land, but they said, hold on, we got to think about this. If we get them out of the land, they definitely going to go and join
with their enemies.
So it's best for us to try to keep them and
enslave them, put them to work. You understand? Put them to put them, because listen, just like Black Wall Street, when we became so big and popular and rich and good, what did Esau do? My God, the niggas are prospering. Go bomb it. Bomb it.
So it mirror again when they ask the candidate for election if we should get payment for slavery.
Yeah.
They say give them jobs.
Yeah,
Slavery is
the same thing.
You can't get us out.
Yeah, the Egyptian had the same mindset. The Egyptian were a bunch of elitists. They looked down on you and they figured they were the supreme divine rulers of the earth. And it was their divine right to rule and everybody else to be subjects unto them. Don't believe that crap that Egypt love you. No, that's not, no kingdom operated like that. Egypt was about us, our rulership. We're the supreme rulers, we're the true gods. That's the way they felt. The gods gave us a divine opportunity to rule this earth. That's why when they buried it, when they died, the pharaohs died, they buried what? The servants with them together. How you gonna bury your servants with you?
Horses, servants.
You understand? Bury everybody together, man. Talk about when they come back in the afterlife.
That's crazy.
They're a bunch of self-centered and selfish-minded people, man.
They hated us.
They hate us with a perfect hatred, man. I don't believe that crap that they loved us.
They're envious too.
Yeah, they were envious of us, man. When they saw the prosperity that we had in Egypt under Joseph. That's why he said, I ain't care about Joseph. What the hell is Joseph? He's not my people. They knew that. Listen, the Egyptians kept records in all those wars in Egypt, man. And that Medulletta, the cartouches, they wrote everything down, man. The history, the events, everything, man. The nations that came in there under Egypt, who they conquered, all that was written on the walls of Egypt. They didn't leave nothing out, man. Even when the Hebrews came into Egypt, that's all on the walls too. But they don't want to tell you that because they want to omit the history, like Josephus said about Manito, the Egyptian historian. He was biased and he wanted to omit our history in Egypt because of what the Most High did to Egypt. They try to omit that history. And today, a lot of Egyptologists do the same thing too. The Israelites was in Egypt. Now, ain't no record of Israel in Egypt, but they're lying. Because the Most High, the Most High brought destruction in Egypt, man. You understand? And the Most High proved that their gods were nothing. That the Most High was the true and living power of the earth. And they don't want to admit that. They want to admit that their gods is the supreme gods. And who was their gods? Name some of their gods.
Osiris?
Ra, and who else?
Osiris?
Amun-Ra. They had three major gods in Egypt, but Amun-Ra was the main one. Right? Those were what they call their divine gods that they look up to. The sun god Ra. You understand? You want to grab some Karaza?
You can get this book here. It's called Pharaohs and Kings. All right, and they even witnessed to how we were in Egypt. All right, because Pharaohs and Kings. All right, and this is we read in the Bible that basically backs up.
Right. But they try to say no, that the history in the Bible is not accurate. It's not true. Yes.
Yeah, what they used to do to the Pharaoh when if it's somebody who they hate or if it's something that wasn't done in positive light of Egypt, they would remove
the names off the walls of Egypt. Yeah, took them out. Sir, take them out of the history book. Remove his name. And they did that to Hatshepsut. She was a female pharaoh that usurped that authority and ruled Egypt. And when Tutmos, the second came back, he said, take her name and everything off of Egypt. She just like an Egyptian pharaoh, everything, just like a man. Yeah, she was a female. And they said, what? They said, take her name out of all the records and everything in Egypt. Take it down. Get rid of it. Yeah, man. They were famous for that, man. Try to take out the history, especially when we was there. Yeah.
Who was the two other gods that they served?
I think, I forgot his name. I wrote it down. I wrote it down here. Let me see. It's Ra and okay, right. The three main gods of Egypt was Harakhet, that's H-A-R-A-K-H-T-E. Harakhet, Ptah, yeah, H-A-R-A-K-H-T-E. K-H-T-E, and Ptah, and Amun-Ra. Those were the three main gods of Egypt.
How you spell Ptah?
Ptah is spelled P-T-A-H, and Amun-Ra is spelled M-E-N-R-A. Those were the three main gods of Egypt.
M-E-M-R-A?
A-M-E-N-R-A. Amun-Ra. That was one of the main gods, right? And Ptah. Those are the three main gods of Egypt. All right. So let's continue reading Exodus,
verse 11. Therefore they set over them taskmasters to afflict them with their burdens.
So they made us work hard and heavy burdens, man. They didn't give us no slack. No slack. All right, go ahead.
And they built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Python and Ramesses.
Right, so Python was like what you call, they were like houses. All right, let me show you what these Pythons, what they represented. Give me 1 second.
A lot of Egyptologists don't like to admit that we were in Egypt.
No, they don't like to admit that.
No.
They try to deny that part of the history.
Even today?
Even today, these black Egyptologists, yeah, they try to admit that part of the history. And said, nah, Israel was in Egypt, and try to lie about the events that went down in Egypt. I wrote some stuff.
Even this book here, Pharaohs and Kings, it says here, on page 10, by linking Egypt's contemporary records with events recorded in the Bible, scholars have constructed a chronology with fixed points. In other words, they got it narrowed down to dates that we were there. Like I said, we entered into Egypt in 1706, okay? Which then determines the archaeology settings for major biblical characters, all right? So they can always back it up with the Bible with, the time that we were there.
All right, so what it says right here now, verse, it says, it's built for treasure cities, Python and Ramses. The word Python means per atum. It's an ancient city of Egypt, or fortified cities that we built for them. Treasure cities, fortified cities, buildings. All right, massive structures of buildings that we built for them. All right, it means house of Tum, or Atum, the sun god. So we built houses for them, many houses, man. Yeah, Ash.
Yeah, a lot of those houses was like food was stored in them.
Yeah, silos and yeah.
To the Egyptian gods.
Yeah.
So just like they do over here to try to make us go against the Most High, they was doing that then.
Yeah.
Because the houses they was building was for the food stored up to sacrifice to the Egyptian
To
gods.
gods.
So either way, they're gonna try to throw the Israelites off
Yeah.
from serving the Most High.
Yep. And they have the records. They have the record of us coming to Egypt, on the walls of Egypt.
Yeah.
The slaves coming into Egypt. They have it. It's there. But a lot of them don't like to tell you that. They like to omit that history and make you believe, oh, it's just Egypt alone. We're just the great black civilizations. And the Hebrews were just latecomers into Egypt. They just foreigners.
Right. They also trying to deny it, trying to throw off and deny the truth of the Red Sea.
Right.
See that the Egyptian army was destroyed
Right.
in the Red Sea.
And they found the chariot wheels, everything.
Right.
They found it. The chariots wheel, everything, man. And when they found, they were confounded. They were like, they try to make excuses. They found the wheels and everything. The chariots sunk down in the Red Sea, man. They found it, discovered, man. All the chariots, they found a whole lot of chariots down there in the Red Sea, man. You know what I mean? How you gonna get over that? And it went right back to the 18th dynasty of that period. You know why? Well, the Most High is so good. You know why? Because during that period, the Hyksos was ruling. And the Egyptians didn't use that type of chariot during that time period. The Hyksos brought an advanced stage of chariots into Egypt that the Egyptians never had. And when they saw that, they was like, they couldn't believe it. It took them away, man, to see that the advanced technology that the Hyksos had, in military warfare, they had the best chariots in Egypt, man. Yeah.
Yeah, some of them say that it wasn't the Red Sea that the children of Israel went through, it was a sea of reeds.
You see, but that's the true definition, the sea of reeds.
Yeah, but they say it was a shallow, it was
Yeah.
a sea with like a little...
A little channel.
Yeah, a little
Yeah.
channel.
But the Most High said he opened up the sea. He opened it up.
Like he stand up.
You understand? And he stood up on both sides, man. See, they don't want to give the Most High no credit or no props to what he did to Egypt, man, because they embarrassed them. Go ahead, Ash.
And they said it to get away from the 10 plagues that the Most High.
Yeah, because he made mockery of their gods.
Because he used he attacked their gods.
Their God, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
frogs and all.
Yeah.
Most High attacked their gods.
Yeah, the Most High made mockery of them when he brought the plagues, man. You know? Yeah.
And he did it with the Midian. When they turned it into a snake.
Yeah, well, they're magicians, yeah. Yeah, he used Moses to go against the magicians. But well, that's why the Most High is so good. And what was so good, when they found those chariots, man, they couldn't deny it, man. Those chariots were the chariots that the Hyksos used during that time of the dynasty. Remember, what dynasty were we in Egypt in? What? That's right, don't forget that. The 18th dynasty of Egypt. That was called the Golden Age of Egypt. All right?
And they called it the New Kingdom.
The New Kingdom. After what they called the New Kingdom. Because they took it over from the Hyksos.
Right.
So they try to change what the Hyksos did to Egypt. You understand? But they never changed the chariots that the Hyksos left there. Because their chariots was such a sophisticated chariot. It was better than what they had. All right? Because they never had a name for chariots until the Hyksos gave it a name. All right? Yes.
Yeah, if you go on the internet and YouTube, you'll watch the documentary when they found those chariots underneath the water.
Yeah. Yeah. And they try to turn them off for years. Oh, that never happened. That never happened. God, that's a fairy tale. That's a myth. No, the Most High said here's a myth. It's facts. And by faith we understood and knew these even before they found the records.
Yes.
That's why the Most High said, blessed is he that readeth and do what? Blessed is he that readeth and do what? Go to Revelation 1 and 3. It's a blessing for us, man, that we could understand it by faith. And we don't have no proof and record, but by faith, we know that the Most High word is true and what he said is true. Revelation 1 and 3.
Revelation's 1st chapter, 3rd verse. Blessed is he that readeth, and they that heareth the words of this prophecy, and keep those things which are written therein, for the time is at hand.
That's right. So it's a blessed thing when you can read this and understand what the Most High is showing you in here, man. You know what I mean? Because our forefathers lacked that faith back then. But now we have to have, our faith have to supersede what our forefathers had back then, man. They lacked that faith in believing that the Most High was going to do what he's going to do. And even when I was young, I believed that. I didn't have to say, show me no proof, show me proof of that. I believed that, even in my ignorance, man. You know? But when I saw the 10 Commandments, the so-called 10 Commandments they made, that only more like, damn, the Most High is bad, man. You know? Because when you saw the 10 Commandments, when they came up with Charleston Heston, that thing was bad, man. The way they did it, man, that thing was like, that only reassured and reaffirmed more of your faith in the Most High when I saw it. Man, when I saw it the first time, man, I had goosebumps, man. Here it stood up all over like, damn. I was like fascinated by that thing, man. You know? Because that's the power of the Most High. That's what he does, man. Yeah.
I watched that 10 Commandments movie, and you notice certain key points for us they took out.
Yeah.
You never show when this
Moses, yeah. Right. But the part when the river, the waters stood up on both sides, they got that thing right, man. They did that thing right, man. Sister B. the Mill, the way he produced that thing, man. That shows you they had to go and read what? The Bible. They have to go to the records and to see it in order for the water to stop on both sides and for them to cross through on dry land, man. That thing was like, it was awesome, man. You know? Right? You want some, Karaza? Great. Yeah, so let's go back to Exodus and finish up that, so we don't get thrown off on what we're dealing with. Yeah, go ahead. We left in what, the 11th verse, right? They built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Pithom and Ramses.
Yeah.
So these were all the treasure cities that we built for them, right?
verse 12. But
Now remember, we never built the pyramids that was there. The Giza pyramids, we didn't build that. Right? Those were built during the 4th dynasty, during Khafre, Khufu, Khafre, Menkaure. All right? The Cheops, we didn't build those pyramids. We built smaller little pyramids, not the great pyramids. Okay? But a lot of what we did in Egypt was building the houses, the treasure cities. All right? The tombs and those stuff, and digging the channels for the rivers. That's what we did. Hard labor, man. Because remember, those pyramids that were built earlier were made with stones. The pyramids that we was kind of building were made with bricks, but not the massive one. Smaller pyramids. Okay? And the houses. All right? So remember that. Because remember, we were working in bricks, not stone. Yeah.
So the people who build the pyramid is people who captured from warfare, they use them?
Yeah. And the Egyptians too. They was doing it too. All right? Because when you go back to the 4th dynasty, let me show you. The 4th dynasty of Egypt. All right? On the Khufu and Khafre. All right? The 3 great pyramids, the most famous is in Giza. These pyramids were built during the 4th dynasty. All right? The 4th dynasty Pharaoh Khufu, or also known as Cheops. His pyramid is the largest of all pyramids in the world. But guess what? They're saying in Sudan, there's more pyramids in the Sudan than there is in Egypt too. All right? Khafre, which is spelled Khafre, and his son Menkaure, Menkaure. These were the pharaohs during that 4th dynasty period. So those pyramids we didn't build. So you see the pyramids, you see the pyramids where they show you where the nose is knocked off when Napoleon hit up. We didn't build those. Those were built by the Egyptians. That's the Giza pyramids. Yeah.
Right, the first pyramids, the Egyptian, King Dozier.
Yeah, King Dozier.
Did he build like a step pyramid?
Yeah, step pyramid. But it wasn't perfected at that time.
Okay.
They were still coming to the level to learn that perfection. So in the 4th dynasty, that's when they perfected building up those massive pyramids.
Yeah, because he had gave the, I think, Himotep.
Yeah.
The architect.
Architect, yeah.
To him, right.
Right.
Okay.
So remember, they were good in certain things too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Even though they were backwards in certain things, but they were still good in certain things. And that was a black civilization. That wasn't a white civilization like they like to portray. That's why when Napoleon, when he got there, he knocked off the Sphinx, knocked those nose off. He's like, what the hell? Black face in Egypt? Because they thought it was going to be a white face or right worship in Egypt. But when they saw it, they was like, nah. And Napoleon, remember, who kicked Napoleon's butt prior to that? Remember, who was he fighting with prior to that? Right, he was fighting Haiti. So when he got his butt kicked, that was a big disappointment to him. You know? So when he went to Egypt, he wasn't expecting to see a black civilization down there. So when he saw that face on that Giza, because you could see, when you look at it, you could see that's the image of a black person. You can't say, oh, that's a white image. You could see, that thing stand tall, humongous, man. He said to his man, just shoot that nose off, man. Bust that thing up, man. We can't let the world see that's a black civilization. Because he hated black people. Napoleon, yeah.
They're trying to say it's time and the weather.
Yeah, it's a damn lie. It's a damn lie. He blew it off with a cannon. You understand? Because a lot of those pyramids still stand today with the same structure and image of a black person. You understand? They hated black people, man. And that period in history is when a lot of white scholars and historians around the world start changing the history and suppressing it, because when they went to different parts of the world, they saw black civilizations, right? In the 17th century, going to 1800s, that's when they started rewriting history fast. Because when they went to the Pacific Island, Fiji, out there in the Pacific, Samoa, Hawaii, and they saw black civilization out there. They said, what the hell? There's too much black people in this world. They saw that the whole world was a black civilization. They said, nah, change that, rewrite, start writing history. Then who came up on the line? This damn devil, the one that came up with, what's his name? Oh, I hate him, but I can't remember his name. The one that came up with the theory that came up with the 5 different races.
The monkey.
No, he classified people into 5 different races. What's his devil name? He classified people into Indians, blacks, yellow race. What's his devil name, man?
It's not the same genetic.
No, he was a historian and a so-called anthropologist. Johann Blumenbach. That bastard, a German.
German?
Yeah, Johann Blumenbach. Look him up.
Okay.
And he came up with the idea of the white race being the superior race, and all the races, white, this and that, is inferior. So they did that because when they went around the world, they saw that everywhere they went was a black civilization. So they started rewriting history. Johann Blumenbach.
So that's why Hitler always say he want a super race.
A super race, because Hitler was following what he was putting out there too.
Oh.
You understand? Then Darwin theory came with all that bull crap. All that in that period of time when they started changing and rewriting history. Because they saw the whole earth was a black civilization. And they knew they were the minorities. So they had to cover it up and say, we're the minority and they're the majority and the superior race. All right?
So
yeah.
Going back to the pyramids, right? What would be some ammo for, because I've seen brothers in the streets were debating like Kemet, saying that the Israelites built the pyramids. Now, Israel did build pyramids.
Smaller ones.
Right, because it wasn't like what Khufu and Doge. See, but when brothers be in the streets telling Kemet that...
They have to explain it.
Kemet thinking that they talk about the pyramids even before Israel was even in Egypt's captivity.
Right.
It wasn't even in captivity then.
You got to explain that, right. You got to be when we went down there, because remember, the other pyramids before were built with what? Stone. They were built with stones. Those that we was building during that time were made from bricks.
Bricks and
Palaces.
You understand? So we was building the houses, the palaces, and the smaller, minute pyramids, not those massive great pyramids. All right? Want to see some Quran?
Can I read this? Out of the same book, Pharaohs and Kings. They said in the 18th dynasty, we built capital and royal residences.
The palaces.
The estates of Ramesses. In other words, we built all the
treasure cities and royal houses.
Made of brick.
Yeah.
Yeah, Richard Pryor did a little skit like that when he went into the pyramid.
When he went to Egypt.
Right.
Yeah.
Saw a bunch of black people.
Yeah.
So wait, this is like my uncle.
Yeah.
And they closed the door behind.
He could,
And left him in there.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, you can go to the Maccabees built pyramids. When Simon, I think he built about 7 of them.
Yeah.
For his parents, for his family.
Yeah.
So we was building pyramids.
Yeah, but it was small structure, not the massive, not those massive. Yeah.
So we did build them.
Yeah.
They just got to explain it more.
Yeah, in details.
When
Yeah.
you say Israel built the pyramids.
No, you can't say that.
When we was in captivity, but they was built before we.
It was built before we got there.
Yeah.
Even when Abraham went down there, they had pyramids there too.
Right.
All right, and Moses just added more. Abraham added more knowledge to them. Well, he dropped more science and knowledge on them too. You know. All right. You want to bring some more in that book there? Okay, so let's finish up the scripture and let's finish up. I'm going back to the age of Moses. All right, continue.
Verse 13. And Egyptians made the children of Israel to serve with rigor.
With rigor, hard labor, man. They didn't slack nothing, man. All right, go ahead.
And they made their lives bitter with hard bondage.
With hard bondage, man. They was cracking that whip, man. Come on, work. You Hebrews, they was cracking that whip, man. Okay, go ahead.
In mortar and in bricks.
See, in mortar and in bricks. The scripture is telling you right here, bricks, not stones. Bricks. All right, go ahead.
And in all manner of service in the field.
Service in the field, digging trenches, making ways for the Nile River to run certain areas. All right, channels. All right, go ahead.
All they served wherein they made them serve was with rigor.
With rigor, hard labor. Okay, so now from there, now let's go to Exodus, the 7th chapter now. I want to show you something here. Exodus 7. Exodus 7, and start from the 5th verse.
Exodus 7 and the 5th verse.
So now the slavery was still going on. Remember, Moses was born into slavery. Okay, and the slavery was still going on. Okay, go ahead.
And the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord.
Exodus 7 and 5.
7 and 5. And the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord Yahweh when I stretch forth my hand upon Egypt and bring out the children of Israel from among them.
And they knew that, but then they try to hide that history and cover it up. They try to suppress it. All right, go ahead.
And Moses and Aaron did as the Lord had commanded them, so did they. And Moses was 80 years old, and Aaron was 83 years old when they spake unto Pharaoh.
So now Moses was 80 years right now. So how many years of slavery is that so far? Moses was born in slavery, and how old was he right here right now? 80. So 80 years of slavery right there. Moses was born into slavery, and he came out at the end of the slavery at the age of 80. There was no slavery after or before that. It was during the time that Moses was born. That's when the slavery took place. And he was 80 years old here when he spoke to Moses, and that's when we came out. This was like weeks after when we came out of Egypt. This wasn't years after, because Moses came out of Egypt when he was 80. And what proves that? Because how long did we wander in the wilderness?
40 years.
40 years. And how old was Moses when he died?
120.
120 years old when he died. So if Moses was 120 years old when he died, the slavery wasn't 120 years. It wasn't 120 years of slavery, because he was 120 when he died. And he came out of Egypt at the age of 80. So now 80 years with Joseph and 80 years with Moses is how many years?
160.
160. 160 minus 215 is how much?
You said 80 minus 215?
160 minus 215. $55. That's the space, the gap between Joseph and when Moses was born. 55 years. That's your calculation right there of the 215 years. It's right there all the time looking at us. It was right there all the time. The Most High had it right there all the time looking at us. Yes.
When Joseph went into Egypt, there wasn't no slavery.
There wasn't no slavery.
But how did Joseph reach into Egypt?
We read it earlier. He was sold into slavery
By his brothers.
by his brothers through by the Midianites.
They sold him as a slave?
No,
Yeah,
No, they threw him in a hole.
they threw him in a hole. But then the Midianites took it and bought him. They bought him.
Yeah. And sold him.
Yeah,
So who bought him?
Ishmaelites.
the Israelites bought him to the Egyptian pharaohs, and the Egyptian bought him from the Midianites.
So there was small portion of slavery in Egypt then?
Yeah,
Okay.
Egypt had slavery. The Arabs were going down to Egypt, and they were selling and importing. They were trading and different stuff. So they say, hey, we got a boy here. Remember, Egypt is like America.
Yeah.
America has what? All nations into it, like a melting pot. All right? But the Egyptians were the top of that pyramid ruling, and everybody else was the slaves.
Yeah.
All right?
just like on the west coast of Africa, the same thing. They sold us. That's what Moses said. You should go to Egypt again. The same process of being sold by even the Ishmaelites. They were there too on the west coast of Africa, just like the Ishmaelites was there when they sold Joseph.
Because remember, the Most High said, when we came out of Egypt, who came up with us? Remember, the Most High said, when we came out of Egypt, there was also a what came up with us?
Mixed multitude.
A mixed multitude. Where did mixed multitude came from? From Egypt. They was down there too. Because remember, everybody went down to Egypt because what? It was what? A famine. You understand? So the Egyptians were just like America. They had all people in Egypt too, going down to Egypt. Yeah.
They had slavery, but Israel wasn't enslaved.
Yeah, yeah.
Israel was in Goshen.
In Goshen, yeah.
They would live in good because
Until
they were considered prince.
yeah.
Princes because they call what's his name? Jacob. Jacob a prince.
Yeah, prince, yeah.
So the children of Jacob was princes.
You were prince, yeah. In Goshen, we were living
Goshen
good.
wasn't slavery.
Yeah.
They had slavery in Egypt though. Because
Yeah.
always buying and selling slaves.
Yeah, we were prosperous until after that period of time. So that 215 years that we were in Egypt, beginning from the time Jacob went down to Egypt, from Jacob going into Egypt to the Exodus, is 215 years. And out of that 215 years, when you subtract and you divide everything, from the time that Joseph ruled to the time of Moses, from the birth to the Exodus is 80 years, you get your answer right there. It's right there. 80 years of Joseph ruling, 80 years of Moses with the slavery, and the gap from the time of Joseph to Moses is 55 years. That's your 215 years right there. It was right there all the time, but we overlook it. Because people think that slavery was 400 years. Amram started the generation of Moses. That was only 2 generations. 2 generations, the most is about 100 years.
Can I get these key dates?
Yeah.
When did I say we entered into Egypt? What year? Yeah, I wrote it down.
1706.
All right, and we left Egypt in 1491
1491 BC.
BC. How many years is that?
Check it out on your phone. Do your math. Calculate. Do the calculation.
We entered in 1706. That's when we walked in. All right, and then we left when we came out of through the Red Sea in 1491. What you get? What you get? And you got a pen or want to?
1492.
1491. 1706 minus 1491 comes out to what? Yeah,
Comes out to 215.
215.
215 years. And that 215 years, it wasn't 215 years of slavery neither.
Right. 'Cause when we went in, we wasn't in slavery.
Now we had a long period of success under Joseph. And even after Joseph died, we still had a period of success until that Pharaoh came in. And then the slavery started when Moses was born. And it ended when Moses left Egypt with us, which is 80 years. Because Moses went before Pharaoh when he was 80 years old.
So we live in this prophecy now, Genesis 15 and there.
Genesis 15 refers to us over here in the Americas.
Yeah, we live in that today.
Yeah, we fulfilled that. The 400 years we fulfilled that. It's up. Now it's a judgment now.
Yeah, we live in it.
Yeah. Now we live in the judgment now. Yeah. That judgment is coming. We're in the judgment. What do you think COVID-19 was?
Just like in the plague in Egypt.
Yeah. We're in the judgment now. From here on, there's nothing but pure judgment coming to America. Ain't nothing else coming. We serve our 400 years.
You think it's going to be the same amount of plague hitting America?
I don't know, but what's coming to America is nothing good. It's nothing but pure judgment, man.
I think the Bible says it's going to be double.
The Most High said he's going to give them double. That's when they go in slavery.
Oh.
You understand? But we fulfill our 400 years over here. It's right here it's talking about. It wasn't in Egypt. Because remember, Egypt wasn't a strange country to us. The strange country was over here. This was a strange place. Strange language, strange looking people. We were familiar with the Egyptians.
True, true.
You understand? So you see a difference between the 430 years and the 400 years? That's the difference. So if somebody actually explained the difference, how would you explain it? Between the 430 years and the 400 years. But first thing you have to show them that the Masoretic text does not exactly write out what was written in the other texts. See, in the other texts now, I'm going to show you. All right? In the other texts, like the Samaritan, the Septuagint, and Josephus, this is what it says. The difference between those books and the Masoretic text that we read in today now. What we read in today is a Masoretic text. The other texts, this is what it states. The proper verse text from the Septuagint is this. And the sojourning of the children of Israel while they sojourn in the land of Egypt and the land of Canaan was 430 years. That's the proper translation. When you read the Septuagint, the Samaritan, and the Josephus. See the difference what it says? It says, and the sojourning of the children of Israel while they sojourn in the land of Egypt and the land of Canaan. See, it's including the land of Canaan and Egypt combined together. Was 430 years. Not just the children of Israel dwelling in Egypt 430. No, that's not the correct translation. And that was put there deliberately so the white man could claim that he is the Jews that the Bible speaks of.
So
right?
When you read the Pentecost, all right, it says the same thing. I'm going to read it what it says.
Yeah, read the Pentecost, yes.
It said, the stay of the children of Israel and of their fathers in Egypt and Canaan had lasted 430 years.
And it says the same thing in the Septuagint too. Yes, sis.
Right. So
I am seeing 1706 as a later date than 1491, but yet how we're using it, the 1706 is an earlier date because we entered into Egypt. Could you please explain how we're dealing with it now? Because it's like upside down to me.
Okay, go ahead.
because it's BC.
What's BC?
Yeah, so the numbers go from high to low. So we entered in 1706, but we left in 1491, in
So in
250.
BC times, the number
Goes down. Right, everything reduces. AD, everything goes up. Yeah. Right. Because after 3 BC, 4 BC when Yahushua was born, then after that you had 1 AD, 2 AD. So from the time that Christ was born to now is how many years? We're what? 2021, right? So when Yahushua was born, that was when the BC time, right? So how many years is that? If we're in 2021, right, which is 2021 years, so it's what? It's over 2,000 years since Yahushua was born in the land in Jerusalem. So you see,
That's why they call it AD.
yeah, AD. And if you go back 2,000 years now, you go back to the point when Yahushua was during the Pontius Pilate. All right, and then if you go back up more, further up, keep going up, you go back up another 600 years, 700 years, you'll be what? 700 years during what time? During the time when the nation was split under the Assyrian Empire.
All the calendars are based off the life, the birth, and death of Yahweh. He's the main figure. That's Mosai made him the main figure. Doesn't matter what calendar, Roman calendar, Gregorian calendar, it's all based off the main figure is Yahweh Shah.
But they try to say, no, it's not based on that.
So,
But it is.
so what do you think that main figure is going to be the one that's going to have at the end of time too? You see my point? This whole thing is the way the Mosai got this thing, because everything goes by BC and AD. So if he's the main figure, who do you think is going to be at the end of time? That same main figure is going to be based on him.
That's why he said he's the author and the finisher of our salvation. The beginning, he's the A and the Tha. I'm the Alpha and the Omega. In Hebrew is the what? The Aleph and the Tha.
And the whole world operates off that. Everybody got the same date. 2000. When we have New Year's, so-called New Year's, they show in different countries.
Australia.
Yeah. Not just American cities. They show, it might be a couple hours later,
Right.
they show 2021. So everybody's going by that number. If they didn't care, they said, well, we ain't counting by that number, but the whole world operates off 2000 based off the birth of Yahushua.
We have the upper Egypt at the bottom and the lower Egypt at the top. So is everything turned upside down?
Well, see, the way the Egyptian did it based on where the Nile River flows.
Yeah.
The Nile River flows what you call down, which they call up. You understand? Because the way it flows, it flows down south, in the southern part, going down towards Ethiopia. Like I was saying before. All right? And the Egyptians, the Nile River, it begins down here. In this, they call the southern, they call the upper. This is where the mouth of the river begins. And it flows and ends and goes out into the Mediterranean Sea. So this is where it ends. So to them, this was the lower part of the river. And this was the beginning part of the river. So that's why they call it the upper, because this was the beginning of the river.
Why did we turn it the other way around? So
No, because that's how the river flowed. And that's where everything started right here, with the Egyptians. So to them, this was the beginning where it started, because it flows southward. And it empties out into the Mediterranean Ocean. So they said, no, that's the lower part. We down here. You understand? So it wasn't based on the direct cardinal points of the earth. It's based on how the river flowed down into Egypt. And it goes down into the Nile, down into Uganda and those different areas. That's how they base it upon. Understand? Yeah.
Good question.
Right, that was a good question. Yeah.
How you say Alpha and Omega?
He
How
said-
you spell it? And
He said the yeah, the or Aleph, they say Aleph,
I left.
Aleph, and the Tha. Yeah, so we said the A, and the Tha. In the Greek is the Alpha and Omega. All right? Now some of the Greek translation is a little accurate to the Hebrew too. Yeah, the ancient Greek. All right? Because remember, we translated the Septuagint. It was the Hebrews that translated the Septuagint into the Greek. All right? So the most I have a lot of things in the scriptures. That's why it's good to read and go over the scripture and look deep into it. Because when I saw this here about 10 years ago, I was like, wow, it blew me away too. I was like, wow. Because I was reading and I'm like, wow. I said, I gotta tell Barack and Ash about this, man. I said, I know they're gonna say, Ben, you're bugging now, man. You're going off, Ben. You know? When I saw, I was like, wow, it hit me. Then when I saw with Moses stood before Pharaoh and he was 80 years. I said, wait a minute, he was 80 years? And he came out of Egypt when he was 80 years. I said, hey, no way, could have been 400 years in slavery in Egypt. When I saw that, he was 80 because he was born in slavery and he came out at the age of the slavery ended. And that was the lifespan of it, 80 years. But let's say the slavery started a couple years before he was born. It's still not 400 years or 200 years. Let's say the slavery started about 20 years before him. That's 100 years.
Still not 400 years.
Still not 400 years.
Even if you say we was in slavery in 1706 when we entered, you still not get 400 years.
Because it wasn't no slavery while Joseph was ruling. It wasn't no slavery. You understand?
So that prophecy only fits us. That's why Deuteronomy 28. Let's get that real quick.
Yeah, and that links right, and that's what the Most High was showing Abraham. Deuteronomy 28:68. That's where the Most High said, a horror of darkness, of great darkness. That's a horror to see that thing, man. What the Most High showed him, a vision of us going in slavery, what was going to be done to us, to be dragged across the Atlantic Ocean in ships. That's a hell of a horror, man. And our slavery, like Daniel said, what has been done to Jerusalem has not been done to no other people on the face of the earth, man. Our punishment and what we suffered, nobody went through what we went through, man. You know, when we were reading the book of Daniel, let's get that Karaza. I mean, Karaza Raka, yeah.
Daniel 9. Let them go. Daniel, the 9th chapter.
Oh, you want to read Deuteronomy 28 first?
All right, Deuteronomy 28:68.
Yeah.
All right, this is one of the scriptures that you got to really understand. And it said, Deuteronomy 28:68, the Lord Yahweh shall bring thee into Egypt. That same rigor, that ill treatment that we received during the time of Moses. You know, we was basically in slavery. All right, but this time he said with ships. All right, he said again. All right, again, meaning what? A second time. That same hard bondage. All right, with ships. Okay, and then it says, because this prophecy doesn't fit, this is after we left Egypt and Moses prophesied this. So this, when he says again, that's referring to what we read in Genesis 15. All right, the 400 years and the ships. Moses put the ships on it to make it more clearer for us. Okay, and it says, with ships by the way of I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again. That's referring to thy homeland, even nationality. Okay, and there you should be sold. What happened? Right, we were sold.
So this
Okay.
Deuteronomy 28, 59, 60, and 61 is part of the plague then that is going on today.
You can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From the time of slavery up until now, yeah.
Yeah, it's around the same time.
All right. So you see it? This all goes into play. Right? You are the people of the Lord. This is you. This is your records. This don't fit nobody but you. Okay? This don't fit the so-called Jews. It don't fit them. They can't say they want our slave ships. Ain't nobody can say that but us. In Egypt, in bondage. And nobody definitely can't say the 400 years. Holocaust wasn't no 400 years.
Right.
Right down to a T.
Down to the T. All right, in a strange land.
But the funny thing, they have our records and it don't fit them. They have the mirror, but it's not their image.
Right, it's got the right.
Whatsoever. So again, this is your records. Okay, this is your records. Okay. All right, so you want to go to Daniel?
Yeah, Daniel. Yeah.
Now read this scripture here. Y'all gonna really see this one here.
Daniel 9 and let's start from 12.
Right.
Start from 11. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, all Israel had transgressed thy law, even by departing, that they may not obey the voice thereof. Therefore, the curse is poured upon us. That's Deuteronomy, the book of Deuteronomy, the curses. And the oath that was written in the law of Moses, the servant of Yahweh, because we have sinned against him. And he hath confirmed his words, which he spake against us and against our judges, that judge us by bringing upon this great evil. For under the whole heaven have not been done as has been done upon Jerusalem.
Right. So nobody punishment that they suffered cannot be compared to what we suffered. Our slavery and punishment, it haven't happened to nobody else but us. All right. Go ahead.
All right. So, and it's written in the law of Moses, all this evil is come upon us, yet made we not our prayer before the Lord Yahweh, that we might turn from our iniquities and understand thy truth. Therefore, the half of the Lord watcheth upon the evil and brought it upon us. For the Lord Yahweh, our power, is righteous in all his works, which he doeth, for we obeyed not his voice.
Right. So, hey, right? I read 15 too.
And now, O Lord, our power that hath brought thy people forth out of the land of Egypt with a mighty hand, and has gotten thee renowned, as it is this day, we have sinned, we have done wickedly.
All right. All right. And then to show you this here, right? Link this up here too with Isaiah. Let me show you Isaiah. So in case some people say, well, that still doesn't prove that you people are the people of what the Bible is talking about, because they're going to try to argue and trying to bring all kind of arguments. Go to Isaiah 20. Let me show you something right here. Isaiah 22, and start from the 17th verse.
Isaiah 22 and 17. Behold, the Lord will carry thee away with a mighty captivity, and will surely cover thee.
He said with a mighty captivity.
He will surely violently.
Of all the captivities, none was here mightier than this captivity here. Yeah. Not even Babylon, not even Assyria. None of them was mightier than this captivity that we went through here in the transatlantic slave trade. Go ahead.
He will surely violently turn and toss thee like a ball in a large country.
You see that? You see that? He said he will surely violently. How did we get here? Violently. He shall violently turn and toss thee like a ball into a large country. How do you toss a ball? When you throw a ball, how you throw a ball? You throw that damn thing, right? And that's why the Most High tossed. The Most High said, get the hell out of here, you wicked children. The Most High tossed us like a ball into a what?
Into a large country.
Into a large country. Where is that large country? Over here in the Americas. South America, North America, the islands. All right, go ahead.
There shalt thou die, and there the chariots of thy glory shall be the shame of thy Lord's house.
Right. And Most High said, there we shall die. So you see that? You know, the Most High toss us like you toss a ball. That's what the Most High did to us. The Most High toss us. All right? Most High said, get out of my sight. You're unfit. The Most High was angry with us, man. That's when you read Deuteronomy 28, 29. The Most High said he rooted us out of the land in his anger. Go to Deuteronomy 29. Deuteronomy 29, 27. Yeah.
Well, you said Isaiah 22 and 17?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Deuteronomy 29?
Yeah, 29 and start from 27.
And the anger of the Lord Yahweh was kindled against this land to bring it upon it all the curses that are written in this book. And the Lord Yahweh rooted them out of their land in anger.
Most High was angry with us, man. Go ahead.
And in wrath and in great indignation, and cast them into another land as it is this day.
You see that? Go ahead.
The secret shall be unto the Lord our power.
The secret things belong.
But those things which are revealed belong to us and to our children forever, that we may do all the words of this law.
Right. So the Most High was angry with us. And this slavery, of all the slaveries that we've been in captivities, this one is the worst one ever. And the longest. The longest and the worst. Why this one was the worst? Why was this captivity the worst captivity?
Because it's the last one.
True. And what else?
The affliction when the Israelites went through.
That's true. And what else?
Baruch 3 and 8. Yeah, the punishment we serve, our punishment.
But it's something particular that stands out of all the captivities was none like this one. Why?
Because it's a sign.
Most High totally wiped our mindset out. We didn't know who we were.
The Most High stripped us of our identity. He took away everything from us. Our heritage, culture, our name, our language, who we are. The Most High stripped that from us and made us a bunch of niggas. Imagine that. The Most High said, go to Jeremiah 17. The Most High said, man, the nations look at us when they saw us as savages, man, as nobody, man. We were stripped of everything, man. Remember, in all the captivities that we had, we were never stripped of our identity. We always maintained that. Even in Rome, right? Only those of us who when we're in the Greek kingdom decide to be wicked and wanted to be like the Greeks. But even during that time too, we still knew who we were. All right, Jeremiah 17 and 4.
Jeremiah 17 and 4. And thou even thyself shalt discontinue from thine heritage that I gave thee, and I will cause thee to serve thy enemies in the land which thou knowest not.
See, you see that? In the land that we know it's not. All the lands we knew about those lands that we went into captivity. All right, go ahead.
For ye have kindled a fire in my anger, which shall burn forever.
Right. So this captivity, man, we lost everything. That's why David said in the Psalms, he said, if I forget thee, O Jerusalem, he said, let the tongue, let me get the exact quote. Go to Psalms 137. I don't want to misquote it. Let me get a right quote. He said, if I forget thee, O Jerusalem, let thy right hand forget his cunning, and let the roof of my mouth cleave to my, let my tongue cleave to the roof of my mouth. All right, Psalms 137. Right, 137, start from the first verse. Because he was also referring to ancient Babylon, but he was also referring to this modern day Babylon too. All right, start from the first, Psalms 137.
Psalms 137 and 1. By the rivers of Babylon, there we sat down. Yea, we wept when we remembered Zion.
Yeah, when we remember Zion. I mean, the good things that we had in Zion, and when you go into captivity, you're going to remember, like, wow. All right, go ahead.
We hanged our harps upon the willows in the midst thereof. For there they that carried us away captive required of us a song, and they that wasted us required us mirth, saying, sing us one of those songs of Zion.
So they did it during the Babylonian period, and they did this over here in slavery too. Sing for us, Negro boy. Sing me one of those spiritual songs, Negroes. Sing, Negroes. To comfort the slave master, making feel good. Sing. Let me hear you sing, Negroes. Negroes are very good spiritual singers. And they made mockery of us. And we singing, swing low, sweet chariot. Even when, you ever seen that movie with Denzel Washington? It was called, when they did that movie about the 54th Regiment in the Civil War.
Civil War, they got killed.
Something like that.
What was it called? Glory.
Yeah, glory.
And then you see all the Jakes were singing those spiritual songs. That's what the slave masters said. Sing one of those spiritual songs. They were singing those songs.
Even on the chain gang.
And the chain gangs, they had us singing it. Even in the slave ships, they had us singing those songs in the slave ship too, man. Yeah. All right? Yes.
1 Kings 8 and 47 would go with that scripture he just read.
In the land of our captivity.
No, the one that says, yet if they shall bethink
themselves. Yeah. I mean, we have to bring it back to our mind now to know who we are and why we're in this condition. You understand? So finish reading that. Yeah, you could use that too. Yes,
They were still singing those songs in prison on the chain.
In prison too, wherever we went. Yeah, they had singing those spiritual songs. Yeah, even the song. That's the sound of the man on the chain. Is Sam Cooke song that? Yeah, yeah. He used to sing that thing in prison, man, and working out there, he used to sing those spiritual songs, man. Wherever we went, in any condition, we sung those spiritual songs. In the slave field, and picking cotton again, we were singing those slave songs, spiritual songs. They said, sing, Negro, sing! And they knew that would suit us to relieve some of that hard oppression by us singing.
And they knew that was different because no nation could
sing like that.
Even now, they see the so-called black church, the gospel, they listen to that. They just be quiet. Like some Mahalia Jackson.
Yeah, that's a bad sister, Mahalia Jackson, man.
Her whole audience was white Edomites. She would sing to them. They just sit there. They just sit there. They don't move. They just sit there and just amazed.
Amazed the way she could sing. And that was Martin Luther King's favorite gospel singer, Mahalia Jackson, man. Whenever he was down and depressed and that state, he used to call Mahalia, and Mahalia just sing those gospel songs for him, man. She could sing that gospel song, man. Mahalia. Yeah, man.
That was Marshall's favorite singer too.
Yeah, Mahalia Jackson, right? Yeah. Yeah, Mahalia Jackson, man. When I heard her the first time when I was young, I was like, wow. You could feel that spirit in her voice, man, when she sings, man. You know? And that's that spiritual thing about our people, man. They was like, sing, Negro. Sing us one of those songs of Zion. You know, making mockery of us. You know? And we will sing it, man. And I feel when we get in whip, man, picking that cotton, picking sugar cane. Man, go ahead.
How shall we sing the Lord's song in a strange land? If I forget thee, O Jerusalem, let my right hand forget her cunning. If I do not remember thee, let my tongue cleave to the roof of my mouth. If I prefer not Jerusalem above my chief joy.
So David said, let me be a mute, let me be a deaf. Can't speak, can't nothing if we forget Jerusalem. And that's what happened to us. When we came here, we had few of us that still kept our identity, but on the mass level, on the majority, most of us totally forgot our identity and our culture and everything. That was stripped and beaten from us, man. And they show you their roots. That was taken from us, whipped out of us, man. You're not no Kunta Kunte, you're Toby. And they changed our names, our identity. You know what I mean? Even the Assyrian Empire, we still kept our names and our language. The Persian, the Babylonians, to a certain degree. But over here, they changed everything about us, man. Yeah.
So Kunta Kinte was a Hebrew name?
It might have been, who knows? Because even in Africa, we adopted a lot of names too. But a lot of the names were Hebrew names that were mixed with a dialect in Africa. Because remember, wherever we went, we mixed certain dialects in. Because even in the islands, some of the dialect is getting Hebrew in it too. Because when they say, come here, when they tell you, come here, man, come here. Come here. That's a dialect of the Hebrew. Come here. Yeah. A lot of the language you speak had some of the Hebrew dialects in it that we spoke. You know? Even when we, in slavery, even the word massa, we should say, massa, yes sir, massa. That's a Hebrew word that means a taskmaster, burdens, heavy burden, massa. Yeah.
Move from here.
Yeah, move from here. You know what I mean? We kept some of those dialects that was mixing with the English and different stuff. You understand? All right. All right. So,
can I give you like a historical date?
Yeah, go ahead.
Like the Most High deal with time and dates. All right. Now, what year I said we left Egypt? When we came out of Egypt, when fled the Egyptians went through the Red Sea, what year was that?
1491.
1491.
It's almost like 1492 with Columbus, right? But this is 1492 AD with Columbus.
1491 BC. Now, don't you know? In 1491 AD, that was the last empire in West Africa when we were brought down.
Yeah, from Spain. 1492.
And you talk to them. I'm reading out, this is a book right here. It's called History of Black Americans. It says here, on page 4, the last, they use the word African, the last African empire, Sangay. The last of the great African Hebrew, it's really Hebrew empires, was Sangay. And then it says here in 1492, it was Sani Ali. That's when we came down and we started going to slavery. So when I saw those dates, I said, the Most High, man, 1491, we left Egypt, and then 1491, we going back into slavery. AD. Incredible. Most High deal with dates. So, the 400 years, you better be. Now we're going to be in the judgment now. All right? The Most High's on those dates. All right? Amazing.
Wasn't Sonny Ali was like Muslim, half Muslim?
Yeah, a lot of
us adopted.
Yeah, we had to. In order to stay in power, a lot of us had to convert or use Muslim names. But they were Hebrew. The national was Hebrew, but the religion might have been, Islam. That's why, when Alex Haley wrote The Roots, And they were talking about we was in Islam. Could have been. All right. That was the last empire that we had.
Yeah, because Spain and Portugal had a stronghold in those areas,
Yeah.
and the last of the Israelites was kicked out from Spain in 1492. I'm gonna read it right here in this book here too.
Where is Sangay today?
That's in Sangay is in what?
It's West Coast, West Africa.
Mali, right? Was it
Yeah.
Mali? I
Yeah, all
think.
that same area.
Yeah.
Yep. That's what we was on that. Like for the last three major kingdoms, that was us. Ghana, Mali, Sangay.
And then we were all the way down there by the Congo too, that area over there too, right over here by yeah, we in the Ivory Coast too. See this here all the way here in Angola, all this in Luanda. Luanda was a major kingdom that we had too. A lot of Israelites were brought from that area. In Angola, all this area here. But let me read this real quick. It says 1492 was I'm going to speak for a while,
So when you go back, the last African kingdom, it says here in this book here, History of the Black American, Sangay, the last empire. It says, but there was war in Africa at that time. Sangay often went to war against other African countries. It grew weak from war. Sangay was finally destroyed by attacks from Morocco. Sangay had fought back, but it was too weak to win. By the time Columbus sailed across the ocean to the New World, Sangay's power had ended. That was where it ended. So that 1492 came and took us to Americas. Incredible. So, I mean, all these books, it just substantiate more with this Bible. All the history is in here. All the prophecies being fulfilled within these books. And this is what you come into that knowledge of. Okay, so the main purpose of tonight was we just wanted to show you that the 400 years is reflective of now. All right, we didn't spend 400 years during the time of Moses. That's talking about now. All right, makes sense?
and then the 430 years is something different.
So you got to get your books. All right.
Let me read this here. This is Nature Knows No Color Line by J.A. Rogers. This is a black historian, a very good historian too. He says here, this is on page 65, as regards Christian Spain and Portugal, Negroes were imported in droves from 1440 until the abolition of slavery in Portugal in 1773. Already before the discovery of America, says Fernando Ortiz, several thousands of Negro slaves had been expatriated from Senegal, Guinea, and the Congo, and were working in Lisbon and Algarves, in Seville, and in Andalusia. The Catholic sovereigns were dealers in Negro slaves, the Roman Catholic Church. They were the biggest ones sponsoring and pushing that slavery. All right? It was Christopher Columbus who went plundering in Negro slaves in Guinea before stealing Indian slaves in Cuba. Before the discovery of America, the Negroes already were cutting sugarcane in Andalusia and in Seville. There was a municipal council of native Negroes with fraternal orders, kings, and overseers. The Negro came first to the Indies from Spain, not Africa. See? Came from Spain, because that was the last stronghold in 1492. All right? Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand expelled the last of the Israelites from Spain in 1492. All right?
What do you mean by Indies?
In the Indies, in the Caribbean islands.
Oh, okay.
All right? All right? So, everybody got the understanding about the 400 and the 400 years and the 430 years, right? So, what's the main text that we use today? What is it called? What's the name of the text that we use commonly today? What is it called? Yeah, I was supposed to spell it out for y'all. Yeah, let me spell it out for you. No.
Masoretic.
Right, with the Masoretic text. Let me spell it out for you. Yeah, that's the main text that we use commonly. The main text that we use. It's in here, yeah. Give me 1 second. It's in here. The Masoretic. Okay, it's spelled Masoretic. It's spelled M-A-S-O-R-E-T-I-C. M-A-S-O-R-E-T-I-C. The Masoretic text.
Is it with one R or two?
M-A-S-O-R-E-T-I-C. The Masoretic text. All right. So I'll read just a brief. It says, from the content of that scripture as a whole, it would appear that the children of Israel dwelt in Egypt a whole 430 years. We shall prove that this cannot be possible, and that there was an incorrect translation in the Masoretic text. It was an incorrect translation, but it was put there purposely for a reason. All right? This error in the transmission from the original Hebrew version of Exodus 12:40 into other copies and translation have been left uncorrected throughout the years. So they never corrected that matter. But like I said, when you read the Septuagint, the Samaritan, the Josephus, and the Pentateuch, it gives the actual correct translation. All right? All right, so that's pretty much on that. I'll make some copies and pass these out to the congregation so y'all could have these for your weapons. All right, but it costs a lot to make these copies. Yeah. All right. All right, so that's basically that. I'll end the class and then I'll ask if there's any questions. All right, and also too, I forgot to give you all a scripture. When you go to Galatians, the 3rd chapter, from the 16th verse, Paul explains the 430 years. All right, he was letting you know the 430 years began with Abraham, because that's when the Most High made the covenant with Abraham. From that point up until the Exodus of Egypt, which was 430 years. So that's when the covenant and the 430 years began. All right? Yes.
So does the Masoretic text equal the King James Version of the Bible?
Yeah, that's what we use today. That's, yeah, the King James,
So
yeah.
it equals the King James Version?
Yeah, yeah. And that those was omitted from that particular translation in that text. And that's why a lot of people get misguided and misdirected.
Can I read this?
Yeah, go.
All right, it says here, most of the modern day Torah or Tanakh's Old Testament was based off the Masoretic text. What is the Masoretic text? The Hebrew text of the Old Testament is called the Masoretic text because in its present form it's based upon the Masorah, the Hebrew textual tradition of Jewish scholars known as the Masoretes. The Masoretes were Edomite rabbis who made it their special work to correct the faults they had corrupted in the Old Testament during the Babylonian captivity to prevent for the future it is being corrupted by any alteration.
So they try to make the correction, but they didn't make the proper corrections. All right? Go ahead.
The Masoretic text was written between 10th and 11th century and was published in 1524.
Right. So That's what we basically use today. But when you go back to the other texts, the Septuagint, the Samaritan, and the Pentateuch, it gives you a better translation of what happened in Exodus 12 and 40. All right? So with that, I say shalom, and then